Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being online on In Good Time. Our next speaker, Director, NSTDA Supercomputer Center Thai, SC Thailand, is Dr. Piyawut Srichakul, and he's coming online right now. Thank you.
Thank you for introductions. First, thank you the Supercomputing Asia 2022 and the organizer of this forums for having me here. My name is Piyawut Srichakul from NASA Supercomputer Center. My apology for putting on the headphones because there's a construction nearby my apartment. I hope you can hear me well. Okay. So far, I think from the start, we hear great talk from many world-class supercomputer center. Let me change the pace of the audience to the presentation of the smallest and perhaps the youngest supercomputer centers in these forums. The talk is about ThaiSC Update, and before I jump to the main content, let me spare a couple minutes recalling the atmosphere of HPC in Thailand. First, I believe the demand of HPC in Thailand is increasing. If you look at this page, one way to look at it is R&D that using HPC, and R&D usually reflect in terms of publications. We can see the publication in computational science and AI area is accounted for 10% of all publications in Thailand. And quite a high percentage number of them are in a quite good qualities. But most importantly, look at the lower right corners. We can see the increasing in 4 years from 2015 to 2019, the increasing number of publications in computational science rising nearly double, or 90% or so. And moreover, AI is increasing more than 400% in publications. So I believe that's a trend in everywhere else, and that's digital transformation, and AI has been a factor, a very important factor of new supercomputing system is popping up around the world recently. And I believe it still continue doing so. A little bit about the historical milestone of HPC development in Thailand. It hasn't been a steady ride, but I sum it up in a very short milestone. I believe it's starting from the angle of service infrastructure to R&D. In 1995, NECTEC opened up the first HPC service over the internet with the speed at that time, plus the dial-in modem. Intriguing that at that time the architecture of Bevel cluster is not mature, so it's the old architecture before we come to cluster computing. The next important milestone is the Thai project in 2005. The project was led by the late Professor Puchong. It is the project that built the first large-scale HPC cluster architectures located in central Bangkok, Kasetsart University, plus 14 small satellite clusters distributed all over Thailand from north to south, connected via the Research Education Network, or UNINET at that time. The third milestone is the National eSci Consortium's Infrastructure Consortium, Part of the consortium, one active activity is the sharing of cluster computer resources from the consortium member institutions and share it with the user throughout Thailand on the best efforts basis. And come to the current one, the major milestone in the forming of a ThaiSC, the NASA Supercomputer Centers. Okay, what is ThaiSC? The real name of ThaiSC is actually NSTDA Supercomputer Center. It is a unit under NSTDA. What is NSTDA? the easiest way to explain NSTDA is thinking of Singapore A star. It is similar in terms of missions and structures. Okay, ThaiSC is located in Thailand Science Park, Pathum Thani provinces, about 40 kilometers north of Bangkok, or the capital, 40 kilometers north of capital city of Thailand. ThaiSC was founded in 2019, and it is aimed to become the supercomputing infrastructure in the national scale for Thai researchers and scientists. So what do we offer? At this phase, ThaiSC's plan is still pretty much the same as conventional tier 1 HPC centers. So it's providing the computing resource, the CPU cycles, with a processing business model, not the data business model. And we also offer support of technical and expert consulting to the user when they have problem, or train them when they are new to the system. The stretching goal is building the HPC ecosystem, continue from the past 20 years. At this point, we are positioning ourselves as enabling tools to fast forward Thailand R&D across all domains, like showing below, and also across sector, meaning academics, institutions, government institutions, and also private enterprise. So what do we have right now? We have for this forum, we would consider very small HPC cluster. We name it Tara. Although it's not the largest HPC cluster in Thailand, but it is by far the largest HPC that open up for public service in R&D scope. Over a 3-year period of 2019 to 2021, Tara has served over 55 million core hours to 200 research R&D projects, and with over 300 users. Tara cluster has over 4,000 CPU cores in total, plus a few GPUs. Using Slurm as a job scheduler, Tara was designed to serve multi-purposes and consists of 3 types of processing nodes. The compute intensive node is, the name implies itself, so it's do a lot of computing, and is by far the most general nodes that it utilize, because it's kind of accommodate a lot of application in simulation models, MD, DFT, and so on. And we have a second type is high memory node, is for memory intensive job. And the third type, of course, in this era of AI, we have a few GPUs that service for GPU intensive, namely AI and machine learning. Okay, how do we support them? We still use human as a factor of support. Aside from the portal that we have a ticket and receiving a problem or questions, we have experts available to assist and actually use working with the user in many things. For example, like porting that code onto the new environment. Some of them are new user and don't have experience of running on the HPC system with schedulers. And some of the work is also including optimize the code for the better runtimes. And for new user, we get them to familiarize with some of the common domain software applications in bioinformatics, molecular chemistry, machine learning, etc. I take this stat from last year and do a recruit analysis of user statistics, showing the discipline of utilizations. And that this, I think, has been many places are the same. We have the biology and biomedical application and medicinal chemistry. Two disciplines has taken over half of the utilizations, when others also have a fair share of it. Okay, these are our current customer, and Tara has served across the board from local internal NASA research projects, many university research, government institutions and government research projects, and also a few enterprise. These also show our partner network in general, both with or without MOU, formal and informal, domestic and abroad. Many centers here have a local appears here. At this point, we also serve as the focal point or touch point for Thailand HPC international collaborations. For example, I serve on the ASEAN HPC task force as co-chair, which is gearing towards ASEAN HPC chair infrastructures and also human HPC capacity building for the regions. Professor Satoshi also mentioned that Fukaku has also starting working together with HRCRC to help on this benefit. Last year, ThaiSC hosting the 5 days EU ASEAN HPC virtual school in July. This effort is supported under the framework of EU and ASEAN collaboration on HPC focus. And as a unit of NSTDA, our resources also including with National eScience Infrastructure Consortiums. So that's the past to now, bringing up to what happened in 3 years and what we are. Now what's new, what's next? In 2002, now we are exciting to welcome our new system called Lanta. It's not here yet. The system is awarded to HPE Cray EX, and it will consist of over 31,000 cores, plus 704 GPU A100s and 12 petabyte of storage. We expect that the Lanta will outperform our existing Tara by more than 20 times. And keep a finger crossed. We hope that we can make it in the top 100, in the top 500 by end of this year. And we will have this, we plan to have Lanta open for operations by the end of 2021. Oh, sorry, 2022. Okay, so we are excited about Lanta. It's a tip of the iceberg. Working on this one, we found a lot of things we have to do before. Behind the scenes, we have worked on the data center preparations, the construction of utility buildings and facilities for more than 2 years. Our data centers will have about 270 square meters for IT white space area. It will supply a maximum current power capacity nearly 3 megawatts. In the first phase, the 600 kilowatt will be dedicated to Lanta. We are able to, there are 20 racks of air-cooled HPC capacities in the centers, and will provide a high power density HPC with warm water cooling. Oh, I forgot to mention that Lanta will run on the warm water cooling system. It is the first large-scale HPC data center in Thailand that will use the liquid cooling. I'll touch a little bit on the time plans of Lanta. It is long. It is really long. The whole thing started for Lanta in 2018, even a few months before that. The proposal was written up, and of course, going through many processes, seeking for is a support from governmental budget. And 2019, sometime in 2019, we start all things, and the data center preparation, utilities, and so on, gladly finished, complete, just end of last year. In parallel, the system procurement start in the mid of 2020, and it take over a year to finalize and complete in October last year. The installation of Lanta is expected in a few more months from now, and hopefully the operation will open by the end of 2022 after the testing and the pre-launch period is completed. What I have, I'll say a little more beyond the slide. I'm showing this because it's a long time process doing this one. I remember I visited Professor Tan Tinwi in NSCC in Singapore in 2018, and he showed me about Aspire 1. And I asked him, he showed around, and he said, I have to have a long-term plan, planning this and be patient. I never thought it would take 4 years to me either, but it does. All right, the challenge in this year. Now, the past few years, we focus on acquiring budget, getting all the work done by the projects, procurement process, and all things, and also operating the Tara system at hand. This year, we'll focus a lot on user engagement, and we will have to bring them on board as early as possible. We even start the program called the Pioneer Programs early last month, especially to draw in the large computations project, focusing frontier on high impact applications, and also, of course, AI. So that's a major challenge. And for 2022, I haven't had a long roadmap like Professor Tantin we have produced it into the futures. We actually have to make this thing up and running this time, and we're planning the long-term roadmap. And we are working in terms of collaboration with a lot of talking with the group in this forum nearly every month or every other month also in forming the networks. Okay, time is, I think I better stop. The time is running out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you. On to our next speaker before, ladies and gentlemen, we go into the panel discussion. And this, of course, will be the Managing Director, CSC IT Center for Science. Please welcome Dr. Kimmel Koski. Dr. Kimmel, may I just interrupt you, sir, at this point in time, because we are not getting your audio come through. All right, we're just going to do a quick check and then introduce you again. I'm just going to look into our side and find out if everything's okay. All right, we're just standing by, getting back to you in connection, sir. Stand by. Thank you. You're looking good on screen, though. Very nice. I could see you say thank you. So just bear with us as we get it organized and get Dr. Kimmel's Koski's audio back on track. As we wait for Dr. Koski's moment, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to mention, as I've just did, that we will be having our panel discussion come through very shortly. So again, should you have any queries, questions, thoughts, that's where you share your moments with us, and we'll be addressing these questions as best we can. And at the end of the conference for day one today, we'll be asking you for your feedback. So do share with us freely your thoughts on the Supercomputing conference right here, Asia, as soon as you can when we come to the end of that. Okay, he's gone off screen right now. We're just going to wait a little bit for all to come through. I'm just going to wait for the thumbs up from my team right here in Singapore. Now, ladies and gentlemen, again, we'd like to say thank you for joining us so far. You know, as we are managing this this hybrid conference, there will be moments in which we will try at best to ensure that we get the connection nice and good. Connection's always been an issue time and again. Dr. Koski is back on track.
Okay, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay,
are we good to go,
much.
team? All right, we are good. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now do another introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Managing Director, CSC IT Center for Science. Second time around, Dr. Kimmel Koski. Here we go.
Okay, thank you very much. And second time, good morning, everybody, because here it's still morning in Finland. And also a bit different, I guess, than in Singapore, because when I look out from the window, I can see a meter of snow, nice sunshine, -2 degrees. So after this conference, I'm probably planning to do some cross-country skiing. So anyway, so it's a pleasure to be here, and very nice occasion. Some of you might wonder that when my Asian Pacific colleagues and of course Jysoo from KAUST are there, that there is somebody from Europe. So one of the reasons probably is that we have had quite a number of collaborations between CSC and Finland and our colleagues in Asia lately. So there's collaboration going on and a number of activities planned for the future to do together. So it's a really honor to be here in this conference also with you. Okay, so getting forwards for this next a bit less than 20 minutes. Tell you something about CSC, IT Center for Science, what's going on at the moment, something about our national systems, and the main topic will be the Euro HPC LUMI infrastructure. It's one of the largest computers which is going to be installed here in Finland together with a number of other European countries and the joint undertaking from the EU. Okay, so just a few facts about us. So we are actually quite old, well, limited company nowadays, but used to be a state part of the state. Well, it's still mainly owned by the Finnish state. 70% of the shares is coming from there. But I mean, we have this year we are 51 years old. So that has been here for quite some time. And the first supercomputers came in 1989, if I remember right. And actually, I remember because I was here at that time. But today we are a large center. Last year we hit the 500 employee line, and but we are not doing only scientific computing and supercomputing. So there are a number of other things we do from the scientific side, but also in other areas, and I've come a little bit to those after a while. We are located here in Espoo, in the center, which is besides Helsinki, so it's in the south of Finland. But our data center and other office is something like 600 kilometers north in the old paper mill in Kajaani, and that's a place where the LUMI supercomputer will also be installed later, or part of it already is there. So going forwards for this, so here in this small print slide, there is some basics of our company, but I'm not going to go through them at the moment, but highlight a few things. So we have at the moment we have 3 strategic areas where we are focusing. The first is a competitive advantage in research ecosystem. That means high performance computing, research collaborations, networks, data, etc. in the research side. But at the same time, the second area is the data in general. So we are not working only with the data in research, but also in other areas, like for example culture. So museums, archives, and libraries are our customers here in Finland, as also some other institutes and institutes in Finland and outside. And then the third cornerstone or third main area nowadays is the digital transformation and digitalization of the Finnish university sector. So So how do we make the digital education work better, etc. And this is something we have been having quite a lot of well, experience, also unwanted experience during the COVID times, because basically 2 years ago everything went to the network. So that was not the choice, that was a must. And so we needed to scale our all kind of video conferencing activities, and also the learning in the remote learning, etc., to quite some higher amount. So these are the areas we are now at the moment especially focusing on top of everything else. Also this, by the way, thinking of sometimes that having this Zoom remote meetings, I'm come here to the office because it's more peaceful than home, and then I realized that there's a construction going on, so I apologize somebody drilling behind here, but let's try to cope with that. So here is something about our customers. So it's mainly researchers in universities, so University of Applied Science, or polytechnics as we call them, or research centers in Finland, and also the colleagues in other countries. And this kind of collaboration we have been talking with many of the other panelists here in this same panel actually lately. Digital education providers are our customers as well. It's learning parts of the university and polytechnics, for example, those who give the education. Memory organizations such as I mentioned, museums and archives, etc. And we are also working quite much with state and public organizations, but with industry we are working quite limited because we are a state-owned company. So supercomputing is used by industry, but many times through the research organizations, not directly paying to us. And then the collaborations, of course, EU very much. We have something like almost 10 million euros annually, or eight or something like that, EU funded projects and so on. That's a very big project collaborator, but also the other European partners with whom we work in these projects. LUMI partners, I come back to that, 10 countries, and then of course the global collaboration more and more important for us in the future. And currently what's going on, okay, obviously high performance computing is one of key areas. And actually the second one here in Finland is the digital information for universities, because there is a major project going on, DigiVision 2030. So for the next almost 10 years, 100 million euros, etc., and trying to somehow to cope with the emerging digitalization needs for the learning and the research in the universities. Sensitive data related services, some mentioned about COVID, but the health data in general, for example, genomics, etc. That's a very high important here at the moment. AI, machine learning, data analytics, data services, and so on. And then of course quantum computing, as was mentioned already in some of the previous presentations. And then we intend to have this all in a sustainable manner, and the green aspects are very important for this too. So we have actually two kinds of research infrastructures, or high performance computing infrastructures. The first one is something that was completed. The installations was completed last year. It has been there in use for a few years already. But the final parts of it were accepted, completed, and taken into use last year. We call it this Data Computing 2021 initiative, where there is three kind of systems provided by Atos. There is a high-end computer, Mahti. Then there is some kind of a cluster computing on the second level, or the next distributed computing type of things like Puhti, and then the pool Allas. They are all Finnish names, but anyway, that's our national system, which is something like altogether about 10 petaflop and a number of data resources, and also quantum computing, simulate or emulate from Atos. So this is something that's our national system. But then after this project was started, we actually had this opportunity for this Euro HPC Euro HPC, and I come back to that soon. But first of all, maybe a few words about this Green Deal. So something we started about 10 years ago already in the previous supercomputer centers, and which was also already referred also by Dr. Tin B here. Here in this is also the data center, the Finnish data center. It's an old paper mill in Kajaani, I mentioned to you, and we have been more than 10 years there. So we started about 2010, putting our national systems there. It used to provide paper, you know, there was 3 paper machines, but nowadays some of the paper factories have noticed that the wood is growing faster in Southern America, and some of the paper mills are closed down in Finland, or actually taken off, and some of them are pretty good opportunities for data centers. A couple of those are used, for example, by Google in some other place, etc. So we went there, and while the paper machines, when they were running, they were something like 235.5 megawatts altogether, the peak utilization of computing or electricity, which means that you will not run out of electricity. So that's quite good for us. So Lumi, for example, will be bit less than 10 megawatts at the moment, and the national systems less than 2. So there's plenty of space for the future expansion if somebody finds the money to buy computer systems there. So the other thing is very important is the reliability. So there was one electricity breakdown in 1982. And we caused another one, I think, a few years ago, because when building 2 minutes or something like that, nobody noticed actually. So I'm kind of counting that the next electricity breakdown, when that happens, I will be in pension already. So that's my target. Anyway, so it's quite robust, free cooling available. So we cool the air-cooled system by opening the windows. Believe me, there is cold enough in Kajaani. So, and feel free to visit if you have a possibility. An hour flight from Helsinki, it's not more. And the PUE is a very good, I'll say. But in this, we will be using a liquid cooling, and actually the other advantage in Lumi is that we're gonna use the excess heat to warming up the flats in Kajaani area, and we actually get paid for that, which makes the electricity price reasonable compared with any of the European prices. I think this is quite good, and so on, and also very well networked. So it's an optimal place for the data center, and so we started to do that some time ago, more than 10 years ago, first with national systems, and a couple of years ago when we ended up with this Euro HPC. That was one of the, I think, the main advantages why we were able to do it, and actually get granted for this project. So here then, the national systems for national use, but then on top of that there is this Lumi. And because of the sake of time, I speed up a little bit, but I mean Lumi is joint effort of European Union, joint undertaking, which is made for this Euro HPC, and then also 10 countries. So here you see those 10 European countries, Nordic countries, Poland, Czech Republic, Switzerland, Estonia, and Belgium. And so it's a 200 million euro project until the lifetime, total cost of ownership until 2026 or maybe even 27, and so half of it is funded by EU, 1/4 of it by Finland, and the other partners, these 9 other countries, altogether the other 1/4 of it. So, and also respectively the same amount of cycles for each, that as they fund. So, and well, its HP Cray system was purchased a bit more than a year ago, actually, the procurement, and now it's most part of it is installed there, and the rest of it is coming later. So I have my last slide is will be the time schedule, timeline here. The peak performance is about half an exaflop, and so yeah, so that's half an exaflop, and it will be behind Fukaku, but hopefully not very far away from it, and let's see. But it provides a good collaboration opportunity also with our colleagues in Europe and overseas and us. So we are looking forward to maybe collaborate with the other centers also in Asia Pacific. Okay, and some examples about what's going on, or what kind of applications there are. I'm not going to go through too much in detail here. Here we have also been using these the previous machines, and actually because Lumi was not there yet for COVID simulations through European collaboration, for example, etc. But the idea is to use this Lumi for the very wide, ample set of applications. And about the architecture, we like to talk about the ecosystem, the Lumi ecosystem, rather than just high-end computing. Here you see parts of it. So it contains the CPUs, major computing platform of it will be consist of GPUs, and then there are a number of storage resources. And some of these parts of the snowflake, as it's described here. Lumi, by the way, means snow in Finnish, so it's a word for Finnish word for snow. The idea is, and later there will be some quantum processors hooked together with Lumi containers, etc. So that's the plan for the future. And the final slide for me actually here is that the timeline. So what's happening now? The CPU and much of the storage. Most of the other things than GPU part is already there in production since the beginning of the year. Was run in pilot mode last year. There's some real science was done also already in 2021, and the rest will be coming in two parts in spring and early summer, and we intend to be there in this top 500 list with most of the resources in end of May. But probably during the summer, some integration work and some tuning will be done, etc. So the final configuration should be available after summer. But looking forward to the spring, and already in spring the production use and at least production type of pilot use with Lumi can be started, so it will be very interesting time. So thank you very much for your attention, and I think my time is off, and so handing over back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koski. Thank you very much, sir. Right, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the final segment of the day. We'd like to have our panel discussion. I'd just like to mention that all of our speakers in this leaders segment will be in this panel. Should you have a question, please post it on your Pigeonhole platform. We've got a couple of questions right here already, but should you have more questions, now's the time you post your questions. In the panel, we have Mr. Mark Stickells. We've also got Dr. Jysoo Lee, Professor Sean Smith, Associate Professor Tan Tin Wee, who's coming up right now. He's in person right here at the Suntec. Professor Satoshi Matsuoka, Dr. Piyawut Srichakut, and we also have, as just seen, Dr. Kimmel Koski. Now, Mark, you will be chairing or moderating, if I will, this session. So I'd just like to see you or hear you come through. Mark, can we hear from you, please?
Yes, I'm ready to go, if you can hear me.
Okay, sounds good, Mark. So I'm going to hand the fort over to you. Do have a very good session, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we'll be happy to receive more questions. Here we are.
Look, thank you very much. And thank you for your expert emceeing as well. It would be lovely to be there in person to share it with you. Look, welcome to the panel discussion. It's my honor to try and moderate this group. I will begin with a little confession. I gave a pitch for the D&I stream, the Diversity and Inclusion stream, on Wednesday, when it's in fact on Thursday. So I'll just correct myself from my earlier presentation. But look, it really is a very positive way for us to close this series of presentations with a panel discussion. And we've had a great series of presentations from the directors across the various centres. I think as was introduced this morning by the chair, the SCA chair, Mr. Peter Ho, we've been meeting as a group regularly, and we engage on strategic matters within our regions and our industry. And we're becoming a regional platform for shared interest. And I would personally like to offer my vote of thanks to this group for your collegiate support and for the growing camaraderie that we have. I would have very much liked some chili crabs to share that with you this evening, but unfortunately we can't do that remotely. So it is a shame that we're not all in the room together, but we are, I think, through these times, building a very strong friendship and a growing approach to, I think, strategic partnerships, collaboration, resource and expertise sharing that is both multilateral and also bilateral. And I think that's quite befitting of supercomputers. We can do many things in parallel, and we're innovative, and we do try new things. So there are some discussions underway that you've heard today around regional activities that support the benefit across borders. And I think at times that we've experienced through COVID and some of the regional tensions that we're experiencing in Europe, I think I gained some comfort in a small way from the very positive way we engage as a group for, I think, benefit beyond our borders and enabled by the wonderful science that we support. So with that little introduction out of the way, I acknowledge all of my colleagues here, just distinguished colleagues that they are, and I'll turn to a first question. And I haven't scripted, as a group, I should have offered to the audience. This is not a scripted presentation in the fact that we meet very organically. We're a very positive and supportive group. So I've got some general questions, and it will be open to one or all or none to respond to. So my first question is a little supporting of the conference theme, which is looking to future possibilities, and taking what might be your first major lesson learned through leading your organizations through COVID. What are we looking forward to as a lesson learned from COVID? And I'm going to open that to someone to perhaps, well, I'll ask you to reflect on it. My lesson learned is I've learned a lot about the agility and resilience of my colleagues. I think we've managed a major procurement activity, several streams, and I think we've innovated and we've learned a lot about some new ways of working that I think will make us even more scalable, if you like, going forward. So it's been challenging. We've focused, but we've also tried some new things over the last couple of years that I think we'll take forward as we look forward to moving through COVID and future possibilities. So that's my reflection, but I'll open it up to one of my colleagues to reflect on a lesson learned and future possibilities. Or
Mark, one thing.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you.
One thing that occurs to me, which is not unique to the supercomputing facilities per se, and it's simply the fact that it's impacted so quite dramatically on our perceptions of how to work as teams. You know, a lot of remote work going on, online things and so forth. And in some regards, I think that impacts the way that we look at recruitment, because clearly skills these are unicorn skills that we're looking for to run these facilities. They're hard to get. It's really hard to get qualified people, sometimes even harder to get diversity. And the fact that there's been a certain transition forced upon us to think about models for remote working, I think opens up better opportunities to address those challenges, is what I would say.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Yes, from our colleague in Thailand, yes.
Hi. Well, first of all, having COVID around is not a good thing. It's bad in general. So let's take that one. But during our experience at COVID, I would consider as having this HPC was a lucky. It's a lucky break for me too. At that time, as I present, Tara system in ThaiSC is very small. It's not actually ready to open up for the national scale, but we have testing and some procedures that have been tested for a few projects. In 2020, there's a group that is doing genomic trackings. They are looking for, they have their own cluster, which is not large enough, doesn't have enough nodes to proceed it quickly enough. And I didn't know them before. So COVID-19 actually produced more opportunities to tackle on the high impact applications, also with the potential users. I learned later on that the result of genomic tracking from sequencing and identifying variants, Thailand has published that data into the GISA database, as a second nation from Asia, second to China. And because we just happen to have an HPC system around, it's not even the largest supercomputer size, but it does work. So is what we found out is opportunities. When there's a crisis, there's opportunities. That's one point that I look at.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Kimmel.
Yes, I agree with, but there is a couple of aspects. First of all, I think here in Finland, what happened is that we had the forced digital leap or digital transformation leap here, because before COVID, there were a number of research centers, so small universities, small polytechnics who did not really use the remote tools. So it was, let's say that very unprofessional at the time, but after a couple of months, there was no choice. Everything went to the network. So it's not good, of course, for many ways, because the interaction, face-to-face interaction was lacking, and so much. There's a lot of problems because of that, and probably we still see that number of things didn't start because of not enough brainstorming in cocktail parties or something like that. But still there was a digital leap, and now after that, everybody has much better abilities to use it. And now I think the important thing is now that what do we not do now after COVID? So how can we make sure that those good things will be continued, but at the same time, of course, get back to more interactive as we need to do.
Indeed, I think that the digital transformation that was reflected by our guest of honour this morning, the Minister, I think is echoed around countries all around the world, and I think as centres we're at the forefront of that. Yes, Professor Satoshi.
Yeah, kind of following up on your statement, also a statement of Kimmel and also Bjewit. Yeah, so it taught us how. So basically, the COVID experience taught us how important it is to have supercomputing research and infrastructure be ready for these times of crisis. Because again, as I said in my talk, many of these results are basically the rapid results, turnaround results were possible because we were ready. Just the labs were ready, and like biology. Because not only we had the machines, but had the infrastructure, we had the software, had the application, the people, the science, and continued investment, such very fast turnaround in things like analysis of proteomic structure of COVID and in fact their dynamics, because one of the things we did was we had to figure out what the dynamics was, because you can't do that in a cryogenic electron microscope, because they only capture static aspects, and and things like that, and aerosol infection as well. That's point one. So it's really important. It taught us a lesson how important it is to have this continuous investment. Point two is how the public trusts how it's so supercomputing can guide the public in terms of their immense trust towards us. That's what we taught. So, as professionals, we say, simulation results, are they real, right? How does it compare to experiments? So, as professional scientists, we always have that kind of doubt because we're trained to think that way. But what the public sees is very different. They see that the simulations on, let's say, a machine like Fugaku to be scientific facts. And of course, we make it as much fact as possible, because we do all the endeavors to make sure that our simulations are real, true to the scientific results. But maybe they have the assumption that for such professionals, we've already done that due diligence. So the results we show on Fugaku, like aerosols being visible it's impossible to see, but we visualize them, Fugaku, and they see the threat of something being bombarded with aerosols when someone coughs near them within the social distance. And they say they're horrified, and they say, okay, we better wear masks. Okay, but this so this sort of a public trust in us, in this in supercomputing as presenting scientific facts was very refreshing to me. That people depend on us in that way. And finally, the third thing is that from the scientist's point of view, so that's a public reaction, but even for the scientists, I think this is what Kimmel sort of mentioned also, is that not all scientific areas have experienced digital transformation. And areas like virology or epidemiology were exactly that type of field. So they've done. Of course, it's not to say they're inferior in science. They've had great science, great scientists, and they've had great experiments, but they have not, as the field as a whole, has not experienced this digital transformation with the digital twins and so forth, as opposed to other disciplines which are much more savvy. Let's say like QCD, for example, right? Because there's just no way to do this science. So I think this experience has really maybe transforming the science, and because of the results, and of course because of accessibility that Kimmel mentioned, because now people may not have a choice, but it may be a trigger for the scientists and the industry as a whole to accelerate their digital transformation. So I think these are some of the lessons I think we learned from COVID.
Thank you. Some very interesting insights. I think with the opportunity for the recognition that we have as a sector for helping to validate and support the science does come some responsibility. So it's an important observation that you make.
That's also true. Yeah.
I might turn to some of the challenges ahead of us, some of the key challenges, and I'll turn to Professor Tin-Wei in the auditorium. I think you have an audience there, and acknowledge you also as a tremendous and energetic catalyst for our group. So thank you very much. But what are perhaps some of the key challenges that you see facing our sector, whether they're around skills or investment or supply chain, and increasingly energy is coming up in the question as well. So any reflections on the challenges ahead?
Thank you very much, Mark. And I'm out here in Singapore, and it's really wonderful to see all of you in different time zones coming together to share in this moment. One of the things I personally we learned about this pandemic period was that we have all got to be prepared for all kinds of scenarios going forward. And so the pandemic itself caused our data center build-up to be delayed significantly, and delivery of our equipment was also disrupted by the supply chain problems. And now with the potential of war in Europe spreading, we must be prepared, right, for all kinds of eventuality. The problem that we also faced was that with COVID pandemic, now everybody knows they can work from anywhere in the world. They don't have to be stuck to the office. They don't have to turn up in the office and yet perform almost everything, every task that they have been assigned to do, short of turning up in the data center to flick a switch or monitor a device. So we've got to really understand how to change the workplace. Even in this conference itself, we the organizers have got to be constantly thinking about how the old paradigm of where everybody's gathered into one room and then somebody's speaking and the rest of us are listening, right? That model is starting to change as people realize that you can attend a conference from anywhere in the world, anytime, and still receive the same amount of information and still be able to asynchronously submit questions and have the answers responded to in asynchronously, right? And still get the same value out of it. So these are little things that the pandemic has brought upon us, and we really have got to be prepared going forward, because the pandemic is still not over yet, and we've got really to adapt ourselves to that environment. Having said that, it also meant a tremendous move towards digitalization across the board in a way which we could not have done within our community ourselves. So we have to redouble our efforts, because the cat is out of the box, that the digitalization process, the emergence of the metaverse, which morphed from the early days of the Second Life. Those kinds of major paradigm shifts is now upon us. And we in the HPC community have to ask ourselves, how do we maintain our relevance? How do we create the infrastructure to support the future generation of digitalization that spreads to supercomputing for all, which will eventually become ordinary computing for everyone as the technology moves forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lee, yes, Dr. Jysoo Lee in the Kingdom, yes.
Yes. So, I mean, I think that one of the challenges I want to mention is the kind of on the personal side and the human capital side. So when the pandemic hit first, I mean, I thought, I mean, I'm fine. We can do remote work in all the operations. And what I realized over 2 years is that remote working is great, but it is just much harder to maintain some kind of the membership of the team. I mean, you kind of occasionally just have to have a physical meeting and just chat about it and so on. And by doing that, I mean, you're losing some of that kind of the connection. And the other aspect is that when this pandemic is accelerated digital transformation, that's kind of great to see. But the challenge from my side is that from the industry side, the people they need for the transformation is exactly the same people I need to run the center. So my staff is just kind of pulled away from they are getting offers from the Amazon or Google and Facebook, and I have to compete with them in terms of the benefit and everything, and that's certainly is a much bigger challenge than I used to face before. So I think we have to adapt, but I think certainly it's a challenge there.
And yeah, very much so. I think the skills challenge and the appeal of the skilled people that come out of our working in our labs and working with our partners are being picked up by industry in ever increasing numbers. I'll turn to my colleague, who I haven't been able to see for some time, and even we're in the same country, but to Sean, in the area of skills and attracting sort of people into the sector. Do you think there's any other novel ways that we could try to do that? Because we're excited about what we do, but there's a great competition for talent.
Indeed, there is. You know, I suppose one of the opportunities that presents itself in a way that is perhaps more readily exploited than we would have envisaged 2 or 3 years ago is our ability as facilities to actually share expertise and experience. And if you dialed it back before COVID, it would be, you know, every 6 months you go to a conference and you meet your colleagues from overseas and swap stories. But with the way that the platforms have evolved, it's actually possible to envisage genuinely shared and regular and quite intense interaction on joint projects. This is one of the agendas that we're looking to advance in the MOU that we're going to sign together with Professor Tin Wee Tan and NSCC on Friday this week. We have you know, a plan to really try and advance some of these challenges and work in a tight collaborative fashion. So you know, that's one opportunity. It'll get you so far. It won't solve all the issues. Clearly, ramping up our activities in training and skills uplift is a critical component of that. And that's kind of a space where, you know, there's computer science schools in all of the universities who have a certain focus, but somehow there's still a gap between what they would teach in most computer science schools and the specific skill sets that are needed for these kinds of activities. And so there are gaps there to be bridged. And certainly I know your centre, Mark, as well as ours in Canberra, are working on significantly uplifting our training efforts.
Indeed, indeed.
I won't hop on again, but one other thing I thought I would throw out there in terms of challenges is obviously the carbon footprint. That's a really, really big deal in terms of the fact that we're all heavy electricity users. You know, that's a challenge that's being addressed. Gardi runs on green electrons by virtue of the Australian Capital Territory's policy around having zero carbon electricity, but that's one little isolated island in a sense, and there's a long way to go.
Indeed. So I think perhaps we'll move to some of the challenges around energy and environment, but I'll acknowledge an effort from Pawsey, and I know it's shared at NCI and our region to encourage diversity in our workforce in order to meet future skills shortages and to grow the pool of talent that can work in our sector. We also need to look at innovative ways to recruit and to work from different domains to bring you know, new people and new faces into the industry. There is a question in the pigeonhole around centres that focus on national challenges, national priorities. Is there an opportunity for centres to come together and solve global challenges? And I think to answer that question, and in brief, we have done that in response to COVID. And Professor Satoshi's example around the efforts that centres put into COVID and spinning up our resources very quickly. And I know in Australia, both NCI and Pawsey contributed resources to an international effort, and very much behind that, if you like, almost behind the scenes of the frontline health response to COVID has very much been an international HPC response. And perhaps we do need to turn that effort to areas such as energy and climate in a more concerted way. On the energy question then, and energy consumption, there's a question around do we achieve a net zero target in any of our organisations? And so I might throw to Kimmel and just to observe both the challenges and opportunities around solving this energy question for us.
Well, yeah. So there is a clear and easy solution for that, but I mean, I think I just need to pay attention what's going to happen, and obviously it's a good idea to try to benefit from those possibilities that each of us has. So, for example, in our case, we are using a hydropower, so sustainable energy in most cases, some wind and some biomass also on top of that. And I'm sure that well, I know that in Australia, for example, solar panels are probably quite useful, and then so on. So but the thing is that much of, I think, in many places still the infrastructure is well, it's not the most modern. It could be that there is all the buildings, all the infrastructure which needs to, well, it takes time to renew that. So but as much as we pay attention on this, it's quite important, I think, and be innovative solutions. Like, for example, this using the waste heat. That's something that is happening in many places now, and I think that's one of the important topics. Of course, it's a dual benefit, because it's beneficial for the environment, but it's beneficial also for the financing, so economically beneficial. So these kind of solutions, if we can find more of those, then it's easier to implement.
Yes. So Professor Satoshi, yes.
Yes, and of course, agreeing with all the initiatives to, for example, to get green power sources. We're looking at that. I can't tell yet, but we're looking at that, and improving cooling efficiency. In fact, not just your data center, but your community around us. Kimmel's example of heating homes around. I think that's something that's been said, but not done in practice often. But now it's done, which is a wonderful thing. And we could have warmed up to our zoo next door, but we haven't done that yet. We'll see how it goes. But I think the other aspect that's often forgotten, and also this relates to the advances in computing, is we have to make the machine itself be very efficient. Right? It's not just cooling, it's not just power delivery. Fundamentally, we have to make our machines much more power efficient, and that's very hard with the Moore's law approaching. Now, if you look at the, Google announced in one of the data center conferences that in 10 years, the past 10 years, their data center efficiency per workload increased by a factor of 5, okay, over 10 years. Now, Fugaku, if you remember, our efficiency increased by a factor of 70, right? So we have to take a recognition as the data centers become more HPC oriented. We are the leadership in attaining efficiency in terms of compute per watt, right? Any sort of workload, and we need to continue to do that. And that's what cloud vendors actually rely on us to demonstrate this leading edge capabilities, and not the other way around.
Very, very, very positive. I think there's a stronger theme here for us to continue our conversations that post this conference around energy. And to respect the person that put the question in, I'm sure we're all committed to share our progress and our results and innovation in this area. It is something that our radio astronomy community here in Australia has done some specific work on addressing in this area. I can see the movement of a microphone on the stage, and I will refer to Professor Tim Wee. Did you want to make an observation?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Kimmel was saying. And in fact, his data center essentially is carbon negative, right? He's contributing waste heat to warm the entire city near his Kajani data center. And so I believe that we in Singapore, in tropical Singapore, have a lot to learn from him. And that's why we are engaging in deep discussions with his team on whether we can leverage on and learn from how he runs his data center. So this kind of sharing of knowledge is extremely important to me in particular. And I'm sure for the rest of you, learning from each other is something which will help us synergize ourselves and to achieve novel solutions to address all these issues of sustainability that the questioner has asked. Thank you.
Indeed. Yes, Kimmo.
Yeah, just a quick comment. In Finland we have an eternal need for heat because it's 5.3 million people living here, but more than 2 million saunas. So that's, of course, a national priority. But everything what we do there in this sustainable energy, the information is available, so it's no secrets. I'm happy to help, of course. But one aspect I think which was not mentioned, I think we need to remember. So you remember that Satoshi showed the picture about computer size of Fugaku being used more than 90% of utilization. So there is a big difference about energy saving if you are able to run supercomputer with full power or full use compared to if it would be 40% or 50%. So also not only to save energy but do more with the same energy. So I think we need to address multiple things, maybe the physical constructions and these kind of things to make the data center work fine, but at the same time to make sure that the computers what we are using with this power are providing as efficient results and as many results as possible. So that's also other point I think we need to remember.
Thank you. So what we have a few more minutes to go, and we have some 6 wise speakers and one moderator to try and get us towards the end. What I'd like to do is perhaps ask you what's your most, as a closing point, what you're most excited about, what you're looking forward to. And it's not, for me, it is chili crabs in Singapore with my friends sometime soon. And to get to Japan has always been on my bucket list. But I suspect it'll be a meal with Sean sometime soon as my first one. But on a serious note, my colleagues, what are we excited for in terms of the technology, the science, the opportunities in our sector? And I will leave the last person who has the stage in front of him, as Professor Tim Wee, as the last. But I'll perhaps go to Kimmo first. What are we most excited about?
Well, there's so many things we're excited about. It's very difficult to choose. Of course, the Olympic gold medal in ice hockey is historical for Finland, but I guess you didn't mean that. So I think the thing that I've been now, quite long in this role, and seeing that the company going from national to European to now to global collaboration, which opens up new aspects, new ways of work together, and what we have been doing now with you, for example, here in Asia Pacific area, on top of what has been before done in Europe. I think the global collaboration opportunities we can do with through scientific computing is something that is really exciting, and then it of course goes to very many different areas.
Fantastic. So Dr. Piowicz, you talked about the opportunities in a smaller center, but I think the opportunities are probably greater still because you are breaking ground in Thailand. What excites you about looking forward?
Okay. What excites me also a challenge. Challenge can be looked at both ways, right? What exciting me is that the coming of our system is actually receive a lot of attention. We got a lot of people joining in, and this is open up opportunity for collaboration, as Kimmel was mentioned. The challenge is to us. In order to do that, there's a couple of things that I haven't addressed it. We haven't talked much about sustainability in sense of non-technicals. Okay. Let me share one of the my frustrating scenario is that you have been addressed. The gap of a human capacity in HPC and training it's actually existed before COVID. Of course, when Jysoo mentioned that the team is the closeness to the team is a difficult issues during the COVID when you don't get together, but you don't have enough supply chain of people. It has been there long before COVID, and will still be in the futures. That's a exciting thing. I hope that putting together, we can find a way out. For me, because recruiting is difficult, keeping them is even more difficult, especially with the governmental salary on top, is even further the problems. That's a pain point that I haven't been able to solve. And my principle in rule of engagement for collaborations is simple, non-technicals. If you have a pain and I can solve your pain, good match. If I have a pain and you can help solving my pain, it's two-way winning. If we have the same pain point and we are unable to solve, maybe we should get together and think out a solution that we can enjoy together. That's exciting about collaborations. And I hope that after COVID, that will lead us, all of us in this, at least in these forums, to get together and, can I say this here? Well, share drinks or something like that. That's always something that I've been missing for the past 2 years.
Very good. Very good. It's very positive. Dr. Jysoo.
Yes. So I think, so if I look at my lab, is somewhere between University Computing Center and National Computing Center. And I see a more opportunity in giving more to the kingdom in the near future. So one aspect is that, of course, Shaheen 3 will be a major system. Then will just have opportunity there. But also, if I look at the kingdom, there are so many new initiatives just being going on. There's maybe you heard about it. There's a project called NEOM. They are building something like Dubai in the northwestern part of the kingdom, and that has involved heavily digitalized. So, and also there is a movement in the kingdom to moving toward AI like any other country in the world. So I can see really great opportunity of just working with these entities, just make a progress. I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to happen.
Very positive. I can see you looking to the future, Professor Satoshi, as you were looking then. So perhaps how do you reflect on what you're excited about? May have you on mute.
I'm excited about lots of things. One thing is, I think we hit with all these, fantastic efforts and collaborations. In some ways, we're finally hitting this social critical point in terms of HPC becoming, receiving a significant spotlight from society, from the industry, from science, and so forth. I see this quite a quantitative difference I mean, for the qualitative differences, sorry, between the past and now. You know, as much as Kimmel was excited with the Finns winning the hockey, Olympic hockey, congratulations. And you know, we won the a gold and silver medal in ski jumping. We're quite a Nordic country, by the way, Japan as well. But you know, as Tsuruka-san mentioned, his jump was analyzed in detail on Fugaku, and they may help in his success. Not, of course, his own endeavor, but you know, all the data was given to his coaching staff and so forth. And you know, it was covered by TV as well, significant coverage by TV. And so that's one exemplar. But we're hitting to the point where, for example, all my research teams, you know, those in the application space, suddenly they're pulled into the spotlight within their domain, and sometimes in this public matter, like Tsuboka, that they are doing something really significant. They're receiving us. They're suddenly in the spotlight, and so I'm really excited by the fact, and also, you know, the uptake of HPC, like in cloud. You know, if 10 years ago when Amazon started, like cloud stuff, over 10 years ago, HPC was nowhere, right? But now it's an integral part of their. You know, in fact, that's going to be the growing part of the business. Same with the chip vendors. Same with everything. The industry, the users. So I'm really excited by the fact that we finally hit this mainstream impetus, let's say. That's one thing. And the second thing is, because of this, there's high expectations, but the road ahead is very, very difficult. Because, you know, Moore's law is ending. We may have some quantum future, but the majority of future is non-quantum, unfortunately. Because not many applications can experience quantum speed up, even with like variational algorithms. It's really hard, let's say, to speed up your CFD. So we have both quantum and non-quantum futures, but because both are very hard. They're very exciting to challenge. They're very exciting challenges ahead.
Well, thank you. We're not shy of the challenge, so thank you. Now, before we hand back to the auditorium and for Professor Timui to wrap us up and your closing words, to my colleague in Canberra, to Sean, what are you excited about?
So one of the things that gets me very excited, Mark, is the idea that as major utilizers of electricity and very high profile ones, that facilities such as ours can be a part of you know, pioneering pathways into, you know, renewable technologies. And I'd love to have a supercomputer which runs on hydrogen. I think it's entirely possible. And it's not too far away. And Australia is one of the places that has the relevant ingredients to pull something like that together. And if facilities like ours can play a trailblazing role, I just think that'd be fantastic.
Fantastic. That's a great point. We didn't get to a question about how we engage with younger prospective scientists and researchers in our high schools, but there is a point there about energy futures that really does motivate young people, and I think we need to embrace it head on. But I'll hand the floor. Thank you all, and hand the floor to Professor Timui. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to all of you. We here in Singapore are particularly excited to work with each and every one of you. With each of you, there are tremendous opportunities that you have just described, and we're all very excited to work, with Kimmel on how to leverage on carbon negative data center technologies, as well as to participate in him with his LUMI effort. With Satoshi being excited about being able to access the exascale systems that he is running. With Pia Wood, you know, disseminating the technology through the ASEAN HPC virtual school, for instance, right? With Sean, we are really excited about the MOU that we're going to sign on sharing resources, exchanging of capabilities, and so on. And with Mark, you know, we are a major transit route for SKA data that routes to Singapore through the advanced network that we have set up, and also with quantum computing going forward. And then, of course, with Jysoo, We hope that he will come back more to our region to help us boost our HPC activities in supercomputing. And of course, with all of you as center leaders, leaders who are of like mind, leaders who are pioneers in many aspects of all things HPC, we hope that this group of center leaders forum will increase in number as more and more center leaders come together to work together to forge our way forward towards supercomputing for all, to power a future of incredible, exciting possibilities. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for the panel discussion. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of day one's program of SCA 2022. Mark, I'd like to say a big thank you to you for moderating this lively, lovely session at the end of day one. We'd like to mention that day two will begin tomorrow at 9 a.m. So for those of you online and here in the hall as well, if you are joining us tomorrow, the awards will be here. The SCA Awards and the DMC Awards will be right here tomorrow at 9 a.m. We've got a great program in store for you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, so don't miss that as well. A couple of announcements right here. For those of you who are physically here, we will dismiss you by zones. And this, of course, is based on our safe measurements right here as well. For those of you online, ladies and gentlemen, again, we'd like to say thank you for joining us virtually. We certainly hope the experience has been great for you. Do share with us through the feedback column to share with us your thoughts on how we can do even better for tomorrow or the years ahead as well. With that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Ravi from Singapore saying thank you. For those of you tuning in at odd hours in the world, we thank you for your patience in joining us for the entire day's program. Tomorrow will be yet another day that you should not miss at SCA 2022. Have a great evening, ladies and gentlemen from Singapore. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.